everybody. Welcome back to yet another TV Review Thursday. I'm your host, the OTS Starties, and Hetty Feather Season 2 is in full swing, folks. Well, our review of it anyway, not the show itself, because that ended years ago. But anywho, we are now on to what could be one of my second favorite story arcs in the show. So let's share screen. And the Character of the Year award goes to Cramborne. I mean Rylanor. I mean the Giga Chad. I mean God. I mean the Doctor. I mean Cramborne. So today we are reviewing episodes 3 and 4. And I have to say, these two episodes demonstrated to me why I'm a big fan of Cramborne. So, the postman arrives and hands Nurse Winterson a letter. The letter is addressed to Hetty, but Matron Bottomley takes it off of her. So in the girls' dormitories, Elizabeth bursts in and she tells everybody that there are fleas within the Foundling Hospital. The dorms are now going to be checked by the Foundlings themselves. And as the dorm check gets underway, Harriet and Hetty both hide the letters that were found a few episodes ago. Because of the flea infestation, the juniors have to reunite with the seniors, and that means that Hetty and Eliza have a little reunion. And Eliza's been recast in this, which they should have kept the original actor from her last appearance, personally. I don't like recasts when it's the same person. If it's Doctor Who or a Time Lord or Time Lady, they can regenerate. But when it's the same person, I'm not okay with it. They did this with Morden Solus as well, but with Morden Solus, you could hardly tell the difference. So if you're doing a recast, as long as it captures the likeness of the actor who portrayed them first. Eliza sees another Foundling sitting on a bed next to Hetty. This angers her and she forces the other Foundling off. Now, the other Foundling is called Clara Oswald. God, I miss Capaldi. 10 years since he was announced as the Doctor. 10 years. And it's all gone downhill from there, folks. It's all gone all ecky thump. Nurse Winston comes in and she gives Hetty some bed sheets. Hidden within those bed sheets is a letter from Jem. When Hetty sees the letter, she hides it away and the seniors go to class. Meanwhile, on the subject of letters, Matron Bottomley also gets a letter that's addressed to Cramborne. Tell you what, this might as well be an episode of Postman Pat. Remember last week I was talking about Stan being a Postman Pat knockoff character? I reckon that Postman Pat snuck in this show. So the boys are playing football in their dormitory and Cramborne decides to come in and play the coach. Matron Bottomley comes in and he gives Cramborne a letter that's from his uncle, who is revealed to be an earl. He is also told that games are banned from the dormitories. Vince and Judd then talk about why they want a football still. This is an ongoing arc from the last episode. Stan! And he drove the fastest milk cart in London. In the girls' dinner hall, Hetty is very excited because Jem is coming. They are going to meet by the gates in the afternoon, but Matron Bottomley comes in with Ida and they announce that Ida's going to be in charge of the kitchen and she requires 2 assistants. Ida selects Hetty and Sheila, much to their disgust. That afternoon outside, Jem is at the gates, but Hetty is too busy serving the other Foundlings' supper. Meanwhile, in that dinner hall, Eliza also argues with the Foundling girl from earlier, Clara. I'm tempted to say Oswald at the end, but it's not Clara Oswald. The boys are practicing a military drill. Gideon can't keep up and he falls over. Cramborne spots Jem in the corner and Jem runs away. Gideon says that the boy that they just saw at the gates looked just like Jem. Overhearing this, Vince tells Judd to fall over intentionally the next time they practice and he fakes injuring his leg, and they both walk out of class. Cramborne comes into Matron's office and he tells her about this brief encounter with Jem. They don't know who Jem is, by the way. Cramborne also tells Matron that his uncle is not well and he wants to find his long-lost cousin, as he is next in line to the title of Earl. He will also inherit the estate. Matron tells Cramborne first that he needs to review hospital security to prevent anything bad from happening or any incidents like this again. And Cramborne tells Matron a bit more about his family. Back outside, Vince and Judd sneak out and talk to Jem. They ask him for money so that they can relay a message to his whereabouts. So in the kitchen, Hetty is having the time of her life. Not. And while Sheila is excelling at her work. Vince and Judd come in to relay Jem's message to Hetty, but before they can say anything, Hetty yells at them, saying that she is too busy to do anything. And the hero of the hour is back. Stanley, the fastest milkman in London, arrives, and Jem asks him to relay his message, as he thinks Vince and Judd screwed him over. After their failed attempt at relaying the message, Vince and Judd meet up with Milkman Stan again. He is given the 8 pence that Jem gave them. He tells Vince and Judd that he will give Hetty the message, as they have both failed in their mission, and to hold up their end of the bargain. And back to the kitchen antics again. Hetty fails at rolling out the pastry, and just as she's about to probably hit out at Sheila, Milkman Stan comes in to save the day again and says that Matron has a job for her. Obviously, he's lying, and Hetty goes out and reunites with Jem. So back to Vince, and he runs into Matthias. As Matthias believes that Vince was lying, and he goes up to fight him. In the kitchen again, Matron Bottomley comes in and tells Ida to make mutton chops for her, as she is eating with Cramborne tonight. She also asks where Hetty is, and Sheila tells her that she went with Stan. Sheila tells her that Hetty went with the milkman. Eliza runs out on a search for Hetty. Outside at the gates, Hetty and Jem talk, and she is told that her borrowed father can no longer walk due to a fall that he had. Gideon also comes out as well to talk to him, and they are also updated on what's happening with baby Hazel. Now, Eliza approaches Stan, and she is directed to the location of Hetty and Jem. She hides behind a wall, sees what's going on, and she runs off. Hetty is also informed that her borrowed parents know nothing about her biological mother. So this makes Hetty lose hope a bit more. That evening, Cramborne and Matron Bottomley have dinner. They talk about Cramborne's cousin and Australia, and Matron inquires what will happen if they can't find his cousin. Now, Matron had a plan here, and I think the plan was to make sure that Cramborne becomes the next Earl. When he becomes the next Earl, he will have money, he will have an estate. She will manipulate him into donating that money to the Foundling Hospital and to her cause. Hetty goes back into the kitchen and is confronted by Eliza. Eliza isn't happy that Hetty didn't tell her about Jem coming. So as payback, she burns all of Hetty's letters from him, and in the kitchen, Harriet tries to reassure Hetty that her token was also there and will not be burnt as it is metal. Right, science lesson time, folks. Right, so, science time, kids. Brittany, Dr. Morden Solus. Now, I searched upon the internet if Harriet was right or not, because she said to Hetty, it won't melt on the fire. And she is right. So, in Morden Solus voice, Most fires can reach up to 1,100 point Fahrenheit, also known as 593 degrees Celsius. But still, this is not hardened for aluminium or stainless steel alloys to melt completely. In general, metals start to become malleable at around 400 degrees Fahrenheit. They start melting around 700 to 11,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So, Harriet, you are the star pupil of Dr. Morton Solis' science school. My Xeno studies range from Ergum to Agrarium. I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I asked this question myself if Harriet was right or not, and I tried looking throughout all my science books, but I don't think they have enough information. I bet now I'll spot one of my books and it'll have the exact melting point on there. Sorry, I feel so lazy now looking it up on the internet. Because there is a certain point where metal melts and it becomes molten and it becomes a liquid and you can forge weapons. And I only know this because I've seen it in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. You know, during that Uruk-hai scene when they're all training them up. And I've done it in Skyrim before. I've not played Skyrim for ages. Bearing in mind, I'm not going to play another Bethesda game in my life. Later that night, Vince and Judd go into the pantry and spot Hetty. She sees the burnt letters. She sees the letters that Eliza burnt, and they find Hetty's token. Hetty saw them steal it, and she wants it back. The next morning, Nurse Macclesfield is hanging out the washing. Harriet offers to help her carry it in, and she does so. While she's passing Matthias, she gives him a note about Hetty's token being in Vince's possession. When Gideon catches this news, he goes off to find Hetty. Hetty runs into Sheila, and she notices that her bonnet is covering up some meat. While she accuses her of thieving, Ivor comes in and sends Sheila to clean the tables. Gideon comes in and says that Hetty's being blackmailed by Vince and Judd. Gideon is then sent back to the boys, and Hetty explains that her token was the last thing that her mother left her. Ida talks to Vince and Judd and convinces them to give Hetty her token back. But they don't have it, as they want a football and they wanting to blackmail Hetty to look cool. Hetty loses all hope and she talks to Ida about her token and how her mother is important to her. Ida tells her to hold on to her memories and that people are more important than objects. When she goes back to the girls' dormitory that night, Hetty finds her token at the girls' dormitory and learns that Eliza had it all along. Now, why she isn't pissed off with Eliza is beyond me, because she burnt her letters to Jem just to put the icing on the cake. She took her token away from her. I mean, all because she didn't get invited to meet Jem. How is Hetty not pissed off at her for this? Episode 4. We start with Gideon getting ready for an audition for Jacob Melrose's choir school. So the last time we saw Jacob Melrose, he stated that Gideon was not of age to join the school, but now he's older. He can now audition, and Gideon wanted to go to Jacob Melrose's choir school. And Melrose was really interested in getting him to join because he saw potential in him. Matron receives a letter and she hastily rushes off. She states that it's a private matter and she's placed Cramborne in charge of the Foundling Hospital for the day. The church service is about to begin and the Foundling has noticed that Matron Bottomley has not yet showed up. Eliza is also asked to sit down with the younger Foundlings, but she wants to stay with Hetty. Winterson allows this just this once because Matron isn't here. It's also worth saying that at this scene, Harriet glances at Matthias in a lovingly way. Now, this episode is the first signs of Matthias and Harriet's relationship. And I won't go into what happens later in the season or in the final few episodes, because we'll leave that till the time comes. Cramborne takes the helm of the service and is a nervous speaker. He announces that Gideon will audition for Jacob Melrose's choir school. As the auditions begin, Gideon is nervous and drops his music sheets while he is in front of Jacob Melrose. While the girls are having lunch, Sheila and co speculate over what's happened to Matron. Eliza snatches Clara's toffee. Now, Clara, of course, makes another appearance. So the girl from the last episode, she makes an appearance in this one, and she has her toffee snatched by Eliza. Nurse Winterson then sends the juniors away. Clara mocks Eliza by saying that Hetty won't be around to protect her now. And this portrays her as a sort of Sheila-like role. Now this portrays Clara as a sort of Sheila-like character. Gideon sings in his audition, but he doesn't hit the high notes as he should. Melrose notices this, and he says that his voice is breaking. He tells Gideon that he will have to wait until his voice settles down, and he will have to try it again in 1 year's time. He also says that this is quite common for boys his age as well. Cramborne leads the boys to the dining hall. Vince spots a disappointed Gideon and follows him around. At dinner, Matthias asks Gideon how it went, and they seemingly think that he got in. So the hospital has had visitors that day, and Nurse Macclesfield lets them out. As Nurse Macclesfield lets out some governors, a mysterious figure stops the door from getting shut. This scares her to death, and I love every second of it, because it's revealed to be someone less sinister than you'd expect. In the boys' classroom, Nurse Macclesfield summons Cramborne. The guest is revealed to be his father, who is also a vicar. Oh boy, that's very fitting for a guy like him. Nurse Macclesfield is told to look after the boys as well as the girls, while Cramborne talks to his father about family issues. And they were established last episode when Cramborne was told that his uncle is most unwell. Hetty and Harriet talk about Gideon. Hetty worries that she will never see Gideon again, much like Polly. Nurse Macclesfield comes in to check in on the girls and then goes out again. And I love how all the girls are, all standing up, talking to each other as if it's a leisurely Sunday. And the second she comes in, Macclesfield just gets the girls to sit down and they all rush to their seats. Cramborne's father is not happy with his son due to his duties at the Foundling Hospital taking over family matters. He needs help to run his household, as the manor will pass on to Reverend Cramborne when the Earl dies. Cramborne persuades his father to be taken on a tour of the Foundling Hospital, and he does so. Nurse Winterson tells Clara off and says that she ought to be friends with Eliza now. When she goes, it turns out that Clara is a mini Sheila with her own little she-mob. Walter and Ned talk, and Walter believes that he can read minds like a psychic. Vince scares him just to make fun of him. Nurse Macclesfield then comes in, and when she's asked about where Cramborne is, she ignores the question. Vince mocks Gideon because he's now got into Jacob Melrose's school, as he's believed to be. Elizabeth and Monica talk about Matron Bottomley running away and then getting married. She is taunted about her brother leaving and her being all alone. Just as she's finished doing that, Cramborne and his father come in and they all sit down. As Cramborne's father looks stern, the girls are all scared by him. And when they leave, Monica and Elizabeth are both convinced that this is Matron Bottomley's replacement, and both live in mortal fear of him. Hetty is determined to see Gideon and tell him about her worries, and she spots a vent on one of the walls in which she can escape through. Nurse Macclesfield runs into Cramborne and his father and complains about multitasking, but she's then shut down. Macclesfield decides that it would be less work for her if she moved the boys in with the girls for this Bible study class. And as they go into the girls' classroom, Harriet is definitely happy about seeing Matthias again. Cramborne is told by his father that he has a strong sense of duty towards the foundlings and the hospital. Cramborne states that he feels like Matron needs him around, but his father says that their family situation has changed. During Bible study, Nurse Winterson comes in and whispers something to Nurse Macclesfield. She promptly gets up and walks out. When they are gone, everybody gets up and socializes. Hetty takes this opportunity to congratulate Gideon, but he says nothing. Vince pickpockets him and he steals a note. Nurse Winterson tells Macclesfield that Eliza has gone missing, and the juniors are all being interrogated. I love how Nurse Macclesfield is the strict one, whereas Winterson's all right, children. Eliza's gone missing. Do any of you know where she went? And Winterson's like, and Macclesfield's like, where is she? Where is, like she's a fugitive or something. Winterson looks at Clara and she says that Eliza likes her sister more than her. So Vince reads out the note from Gideon's pocket, and it's revealed that Gideon is not going to Jacob Melrose's choir school. When he's asked about what happened, Gideon is angry and claims that they don't know anything about him. Macclesfield and Winterson comes in and they inform Hetty about her sister, and she is dragged off to help find her. So as Gideon strops off, while he's outside, he notices a foundling hidden in plain sight. We go back to Reverend Cramborne now, and he is just leaving the hospital. Cramborne wishes for time to consider helping his father and is told that he is expected to come by his family estate within 1 month. Reverend Cramborne also tells his son to think about settling down with a wife of his own. And when he leaves, he says that he expects a date as to when his son will return home to him to help him manage the house. Nurse Macclesfield storms off to the juniors, and Ida tries to reassure Hetty that she can't have gone far. Back outside, Gideon is talking to Eliza and says that the juniors are mean to her. Gideon explains that things change and that he wasn't accepted into Mr. Melrose's school. Eliza is also told that she needs to make up for her protective attitude towards Hetty. Gideon takes Eliza back to Nurse Winterson, and she is taken back to the juniors. Winterson asks Hetty to help, but Eliza says that she wants to go back on her own. Gideon talks to Hetty, and she says that there's always next year. So Hetty and Gideon both go back to Bible study just in time to witness an arm wrestling contest between Matthias and Vince. Judd tells Gideon that he didn't let anybody down because he didn't get into the choir school. Outside, Macclesfield moans at Cramborne, and they both go into the Bible study class, which is now an arm wrestling contest. Cramborne shuts them all up and tells them off, and he says that Matron will hear about what's happened. This proves Monica and Elizabeth wrong, that she has not gone away for good to get married. This is a massive letdown for them. And Gideon stands up to him, but Cramborne says that we can always change your mind about your place at Mr. Melrose's school. But Gideon tells him the truth, that he didn't get in after all. And they also tell him that they were all left alone all day, and they threatened to tell Matron that he left them all alone without supervision. Cramborne resolves the situation by telling everybody to forget about what's happened, and that everyone says that everybody's had a busy day, and he dismisses everyone to go back to their dormitories. We close in with a moment of reconciliation between Clara and Eliza as Clara is given her toffee back. We also close with Matron Bottomley returning, looking quite serious, as though she's been somewhere to do something very important, which we will find out next week. So to conclude, these episodes, first of all, they made Cramborne my favorite character in the show. not just because he has a good sense of duty, but because he's able to resolve conflict and is a good leader. I think that he's a good role model for men and men in general. I think us young men struggle a lot because I know myself, I have issues with confidence. And, these are exactly why people like Andrew Tate exist. He says that men have a duty. And I'm going to quote a Warhammer 40,000 novel here. So, Spear for the Emperor, duty demands sacrifice, something that we must all learn in this endless, bitter war. And I think that quote is one of my favorite quotes of all time. And I believe that everyone has a duty, and duty demands sacrifice, and we should sacrifice anything and everything to perform that duty, especially if you're a soldier. But in general, we have a duty to be citizens, to look after one another, to protect each other, to stand up for what's right. If we think differently, if we think differently, we have a different opinion, that's okay. I think now young men especially are getting weaker because we don't have good role models. We don't have good role models who inspire us anymore. I think that we should have more role models who are true to their word, who never give up, who know exactly how to resolve a situation, who stick to their morals, their values. There's another character in Warhammer called Rylanor the Ancient. Now, Rylanor the Ancient will go into a bit more, we'll delve into his character a bit more next week for a specific reason. But Rylanor sticks by his values. He's one of the loyalist emperor's children. And he sticks by the values of the emperor because he's been alive since the beginning of the Great Crusade, I believe. It's the same with Saul Tarvitz, Nathaniel Garrow, Loken, Torgadon. They are all loyal to the God Emperor of mankind and his values. And that is what doesn't sway them from... And that is what sways them from the influence of the War Master, Horus Lupertical, especially after their other legions just virus bomb them on Istvan 3. So the people that were loyal to Horus and Fulgrim, which is why I love Galaxy in Flames so much. If you ever get a Warhammer 40k novel, that novel is a must read for anybody. I would recommend it to anyone, not just because of the characters, but because of the morals that it teaches. A YouTuber called Shadiversity released a video a few months ago talking about the crisis in young men and women and young people in general. I definitely recommend that you watch that. It's on his Night's Watch channel, where he talks about the fact that you should become the person that your spouse wants you to be. And it was very inspiring for me because that was great timing for something I was going through at the time, because I was losing faith in meeting someone to love, and that video really inspired me and that woke me up in a way. Cramborne is the character that is the fatherly figure. He is disciplined. He knows what the words duty means. He sticks by his values and he does what's right while sticking to his duties. That's why I admire Cramborne. That's why he's my favorite character in this entire show. Also in this arc, it's nice to see more Eliza, especially after she was introduced last season. Not a fan of her being recast, though. We get more dialogue from Elizabeth and Monica in this episode as well. I also like the mini arc we also continue the mini story arc where Vince and Judd want to get their football and pretending to blackmail Hetty because they want a football, as well as Harriet proving that she's a good scientist, one of Morden Solis's students. Now she needs to cure the genophage. The genophage is a disease made up in Mass Effect, by the way, which is more the universe where Morden Solis is from. Also, I love the side arc of Macclesfield being completely stressed throughout the episode. Like, the poor woman is rushed off her feet. And I love how Cramborne says, "Don't moan, get on with it, love." Reverend Cramborne, I think he's very different to his son. I think Cramborne didn't want to be like his father because his father is seen as miserable. He is seen as strict. But Cramborne vowed, I think, in his earlier childhood, to not be like that, to not be bitter, to serve others. And then, of course, we have Gideon becoming a teenager and, of course, going through teenage stuff, as we'll call it here. I think that's pretty good, and of course, the easiest way to demonstrate him becoming a teenager is voice cracking. I do think that he should have said something when Matthias talked to him, but obviously there was a lot of food around on his plate, especially as a treat by Ida. I do also think that Hetty and Sheila working together in the kitchen kind of showed Hetty that she doesn't work well under pressure. And also Jem turning up and their family circumstances changing for both Cramborne and Hetty. And of course, we have Matron Bottomley going off for reasons that will be explained in the next few episodes. And I love how they keep it a complete mystery until the episode after. Eliza is urged to not be like Sheila, to not be bitter towards everybody else just because she's protective of her sister. Having a protective attitude over someone doesn't mean you've got to be too possessive of them. So yeah, I think this episode featured a lot of morals, featured a lot of characters with responsibility. So yeah, I think this episode featured a lot of morals about responsibility and keeping up to your end of the bargain and keeping your promises. So yeah, I'd like to thank you very much for watching this episode, and I'll see you all in the next one. So goodbye, good night, and follow the buzzards.